Muy bien. Well, hello, good morning, everyone. Hola, muy buenos días. Tenemos una mesa, una charla magnífica hoy. Os voy a presentar a John Hopwell, Variety, editor de Variety en Europa, un referente, una referencia y un buen amigo de la casa. También Xavier Marchand, Moon River Content, aquí lo tenemos. Acaba de presentar Nautilus en el festival, que por cierto está siendo número 1 en ya diversos países de Europa. También José Antonio Salso, muchas gracias, de A3 Media, responsable de adquisiciones y ventas internacionales. Aldi Azpiazu, Fremantle, SVP para International Distribution. And our friend JJ Lusberg, producer, general manager of the Magical Society, a production company based in London. And well, it's my pleasure to introduce you all of them. They have very, very smart things to say, and I'm very happy to listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Carles. So we have maybe two big questions. One is there a magic formula for success? And I think at least one person on stage thinks there could be, but I'm not looking straight at him, but almost. But we'll come back to that in a second. And secondly, a key question, which is about what content that is sold and the evolution of taste of the audience. And we certainly do have people here, for example, and I hope that Al will talk quite soon about what I think was the second most best-sold series at MIPCOM last week, where quite a lot of you, I think, attended. But cutting to the chase, maybe we could start by, I think it's quite an easy question, which is, what are the metrics of success? And I wonder if we could just run through that. If we are talking about successful series, what are the metrics of success? I wonder, Al, would you like to start?
Yeah,
because I think you said it's a question of the stars aligning on a lot of things. And then maybe, JJ, you could go on with metrics of success.
Yeah, I mean, look, of course, we all love great reviews. We all love to get awards. I think it helps to expose something, to elevate it. But I think what really calls the shots is still ratings, you know, ratings, or on the non-linear world, also like viewership. And if you've got great ratings, even if the reviews were not amazing, I think you still won. Ideally, you want to have it all, but for me, like, what really matters are the reviews. And without giving any specific title, but we had some titles where some of the reviews weren't great, but then the audience embraced the series. And that's ultimately what makes us happy, and I think what makes commissioners happy.
But of all those factors, which you would say that ratings is the most important?
I mean, and ratings, I would say, of course, for the linear world, you know, I think is what's key, you know, what's really key in terms of defining a success. Obviously, there are other metrics, again, no, like on the non-linear world, on the VOD world, it's other criteria for sure. But I think that if you get fantastic reviews, people will probably forget about any bad reviews that you might have gotten.
JJ, when you were at Universal Focus, VP acquisitions, production, you must have had, especially films, which had an immense variation in the types of success. And would you say there what defines success, or what things define success?
I mean, in film, and I guess this is relevant for TV as well, is the metrics that we apply eventually is if you're at a studio, you add up the numbers, and if you've made a good profit, that's it. It's very simple. But how how big the numbers are and how they divide over the way that the slate is put together between either local films purely for local audiences and international films, and the expectations here that you put against that. Those metrics are very different because the scale of the projects is very different. The scale of the marketing campaigns is very, very different. But in the end, if you planned it all correctly, and this is more, I guess, relevant for commissioners and people in that position, which I'm not at the moment, or not anymore, is that across the slate you need to have, you know, a very, very good profit and a very high return, and you need to be able to show how you've achieved that, and how you're going to compensate for the misses that you had. But just from the position where I'm in now, which is an independent producer, I'd say the measure of success is primarily, I think, if what you've made is good enough to get it recommissioned. So this is very important for a production business to be able to say, there's continuity to the business, I can start another season, or I've delivered a level of quality which stands for a next assignment, and it's anything that you would pitch from that point onwards. If it's strong enough, if the ratings are strong enough, people want to recommission it and revisit it, that's the most important measure of success.
And would you agree with that? You were shaking your head, José Antonio.
Yeah, I was shaking my head, yeah, because me as working in a broadcaster in Antena 3 and A3 Media, still the metrics are essential. We are in an industry where we face the audience every day. Every day we know what the performance was of last day ratings. Successful series are the series that are above the average of the channel, obviously, for us. But now metrics has changed because we also have the platform, and we also want to attract, with the new series, we want to attract.
If you could talk about that, both those things, and maybe Xavier, if you could talk about how Netflix has changed, but first, José Antonio, because I think the change in, especially Netflix, but all the global streamers, is essential. And your change in from being a broadcaster free-to-air to now having a VOD system, which in some ways is as important or more important, maybe. But
it is, because now our shows have a window strategy. They go first to the platform, and the platform, the performance there is measured in terms of new subscribers, viewing time, streaming viewing time, and then we have a sense of how the series works. And then when it goes to television, we have the traditional Nielsen audience metrics. So the combination of both of them is what gives you the performance of a successful series.
And in the case of A3 Media, you have A3 Player. That allows you to work with a different caliber or slightly different caliber of talent, maybe, which you can start on A3 Player, and then maybe they will move to A3 Media. For example, you have Claudia Costa Freda, who I think is a fantastic example, who started writing on Veneno and then got her own show with Ana Ruz, Cardo, which is one of the best shows in the last 5 years.
Sure.
And that relation with talent is something you could do with the VOD system.
That's right. In Antena, in A3 Media, we have an experience of doing television and good shows for the last 30 years. We don't have the straight answer about how to create successful series, but that experience gives us some ground, no, about how to create new productions that are successful, not only in Spain, but also that could travel around the world. Veneno is a good example of that one, how a local biopic is able to travel international and become huge in, for instance, in HBO Max.
We'll probably come back if we have international producers here. Another success by A3 Media was a little show called Money Heist, La Casa de Papel. But Xavier, would you agree that the Netflix audiences, if we're talking about audience taste, at least the audiences that they are targeting has grown and is far closer to a generalist broadcaster audience than it
Well,
used
I
to
think
be.
what Netflix has done really well is taking local product to a wider audience, local TV shows, local stories, and made them accessible to a global audience, which I think for us producers in Europe is a huge opportunity because it shows that the hegemony of the American series is fallen away. You know, the last the Netflix last data dump, as they call it, you know, for the first 6 months of this year, four of their 5 top shows were British, which is
And that is 5 top shows global. It's not just
yeah,
the
no,
UK,
no,
it's global.
and they're global viewers. It was, you know, Baby Reindeer, Harlan Coben series, Bridgerton, and The Gentleman, the Guy Ritchie series. And these shows, you know, they're primarily made for a British audience, but they've exploded globally. And then you had, I don't know, you know, Money Heist obviously was a big one, Squid Game, and then you had recently two of their best viewed movies were Nowhere, you know, Spanish movie, and you mentioned another one, yeah, The Society of Snow. So it shows that there's a global audience for, you know, if you make it accessible, you know, build it and it will come if you make it accessible.
Is that a change in audience taste, or is it more that UK
Well,
production?
I think it's yeah. There's no barrier to entry. You just put Netflix or, you know, or any other platform in your home, and then you can scroll. And then Netflix is really good at dubbing every shows, which makes it accessible for, you know, audiences that don't like to watch subtitle shows. No, I think it's. And, you know, I mean, we were talking about it, Antena 3 or TF1, or, you know, or Telecinco, or, you know, they make, they can have access to really high quality programming from the rest of Europe, which, you know, is very
I think also, I think that the streamers, when they invest in the UK production, is rather like in Spain. Most production in the last 10 years, with the advent of the streamers, has become more local, not more international. But there are 2 industries where there are exceptions, a large number of exceptions. So one is the UK, and the other is Spain. If you look at La Sociedad de la Nieve, the Society of the Snow, that's $45 million, I think, and that wasn't made just for Spain. Berlin is immensely probably more expensive than La Casa de Papel, and that wasn't made for Spain, I don't think. And in the UK, you have the same phenomenon, I think.
No, I think, but the UK, you've got, it's fascinating, and I think it's really, you know, should push all the global companies to make more European shows, because also they're you know, on the cost basis cheaper to make than American shows.
You just mentioned the word cost.
What is it?
Could you go on? Because I think we're talking maybe more about production parameters than the audience, but the audience will have to see what people make. And one of the things which is crucial, I think, is cost. If you could go into that.
Well, I mean,
maybe
you know,
everyone.
it's between sort of 2016 and 2022, there was a huge content war between all the streamers in the US and you know, slight, which I benefited from with Nautilus, but you know, a slight increase in production costs, bigger movie stars coming in, you know, getting paid a lot of money, and suddenly in the last, you know, not helped by 2 strikes in the US and the sort of repositioning of some of the major studios, you know, giving up on the streaming business, there's suddenly a lot less commissioning going on. So, you know, to go back to what JJ was saying, the first metric of success is actually getting a show into production. But so now, you know, what we're getting, I don't know about Spain and France, but what we're getting in the UK is there definitely the streamers have less appetite, commissioning less, and they're asking for, you know, to be more reasonable on the budget side. And then the traditional broadcasters, you know, still have appetite for content, but their commissioning levels, you know, their license fee for commissioning hasn't really increased massively, and the production costs have increased quite a lot. So we have to square this equation.
I think the audience is very well trained. We have a very smart audience. They have watched a lot of content, and they demand bigger productions, and they know very easily what is well done and what is not so well done. No? And that's a challenge for all of us. And at the same time, we need to face the cost-effective part of the business. No? On our side, we were very on the local market in Spain, but we also want to go our series to travel and become international.
And do you think that the fact, Jose Antonio, the combination of tax incentives, rebates, credits, which can reach up to 45% in deduction levels, plus a cap, I think, of 18 million euros per episode in Spain, that is something which is immensely attractive for...
You mentioned before, no, that Spain is becoming an important hub of production, probably because of the incentives. And it's true that not only local channels and players in Spain are taking advantage of that, but a lot of international players are also coming to Spain to produce. So another example that in Spain we have this ability to combine not only working for the local market, but also for the international.
Right. Would you agree with what was said by Xavier in terms of the UK, that in talking about costs, that is an essential element in the evolution of these production?
Totally. I mean, I think the issue here is that, particularly for UK producers, is that when they go to see Sky, BBC, etc., the tariffs that they are paying don't seem to be budging, while the production costs are still at an ever high. And I think that's why finding partners at the very early stage to secure financing is more important than ever. Actually, last week at MIPCOM, I think one of the words that you could hear the most was sort of acquisitions, which is sort of these acquisitions and commissions sort of at the same time. And I think that's why we, at this stage, we're really going earlier than ever, hand in hand with the producer, to go find partners to say, look, does this editorially fit you? Is it a strong IP? Is it a big cast? Is it a story that can travel well? As Xavier was saying, no, like I think that UK content is definitely on a high, and if you have the right ingredients to make it work, you can definitely lock local partners in other European territories or other territories outside of Europe, you know, to sort of lower that risk or that burden and make it happen.
Yeah, and JJ, if you could comment about costs, and then we must talk about audience taste.
Well, I mean, the cost base, I think, has always been an interesting question for UK producers. If you, for example, get a commission in the UK with the BBC, that covers, I mean, not much more than 50% of your budget. So your mindset always needs to be in how do I sell this show and how do I raise the rest of the financing. That's what we are tuned to, but I think now more than ever it's become really, really important to start thinking about your partners early on. And to start putting together, and the expectation of the producers becoming bigger in that whole equation. So in other words, yes, we can work with fantastic distributors who have that network, and for them it's very easy to access all these people very quickly. But in order to do your own kind of bit of pre-sales that you require to have, you need to put, as a producer, you need to put that time in to make sure you've got that network and you've got the places to go to pitch your show and sell it. Events like this is one of the reasons why I'm also, you know, grateful to be here and to be at events like this. it's important for our business. It really is important to set our shows up. The other thing I wanted to just highlight in terms of the recommissioning sort of thought process, we've had in the Netherlands a small medical drama that we launched and produced two years ago. We're now in production of a second season. We've been commissioned a third season in one go. So we had two seasons commissioned after our first season, which is really unusual. It had to do with the fact that it appealed much broader than we thought it would, which is very nice that can happen. It also had a critical acclaim, but then the difficulty we had was second season. Those seasons and the third season are both commissioned now a year ago. In the meantime, prices have gone up by about 25 to 30% in the scope of a year and a half. So we're having to produce now a show, 2 seasons of a show, which are against commissioning prices that simply are less for value for money than what we were making the first season around, even though everyone in the show wants to be paid a bit more.
Yeah.
And that's a real challenge. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on getting that far. The central topic is evolution of audience tastes in recent years or over the years. And I wonder if anybody would like to start talking about that, because I think this is fascinating and the evolution has evolved over the last 10, 15 years. But
happy to talk about that. I mean, I think that when the streaming war started, there was many streamers competing amongst them, plus local players as well, of course, and the market was really crowded and with demand, and it was great for producers. And I think at that end, because of that situation, maybe there was more willingness to take risks, and therefore there was a lot more sort of high concept in the market. I think right now, however, because of the current situation, the appetite is definitely more for sort of, bigger productions with very well-known, very well-known IP, based on very well-known IP, or very big cast attached to the project. Or in an ideal world, both of them, I think that, for instance, in the past we had My Brilliant Friend from Italy, which was a massive success. Of course, based on a collection of bestsellers that travel around the world, that really did it in the US. And then obviously it was an Italian production with an Italian cast, which no one knew of outside of Italy, right? And that did extremely well. But I think we also had now more recent cases where you say, okay, have an actor or an actress, on the top of your poster or on the thumbnail or in your platform that everyone is going to recognize and that was going to probably access to or watch or be intrigued by just by that face, So I think at this stage, probably the market is asking for a bit less risk and trying to secure something that is going to be sort of, undeniable.
And do you think that that's a return in some ways to a television which we knew before with free-to-air, where stars had a certain importance?
Absolutely.
Or, for example, if we're talking about procedurals, they would be episodic.
Yeah.
You would have a problem, you solve it in 45 minutes.
Totally. I think right now, the demand is really very much of event series, particularly I would say for pay TV and for free TV that you can schedule easily, that bring audience, but that don't necessarily have to come back for multiple days, because it's not so easy to keep having the audiences returning. And then also the long-standing procedurals, that have big volume, that case of the week sort of basis. I think that's probably the two elements that are working well. You were talking about earlier about recommissions. I think that in some cases we had some particularly free-to-air channels saying, look, I don't necessarily want a series that's going to have multiple seasons. I mean, obviously, look, if the ratings go through the roof, I think everyone's going to be very happy to have some sort of a continuation. But in general, what we're seeing more is now, look, we want an event series, something that you can market really well, that can stand out, where you can build an event.
Is this more about market necessity, or is this more also, does it reflect a change in audiences, in what people want to see?
Well, it's a hard question. I think it's really escapism. I think maybe because the way things are, people just prefer to see some more blue sky, and maybe less high concept or less gritty. Although we had a very successful shows like Responder with Martin Freeman, which obviously was fairly great, like a night cop on his night watch. So So yeah, I think look, it's hard to say what the audience want, and also I think for you guys, for producers, it's very difficult also to know when you start producing something that's going to deliver 2 years down the line. Will the market will want that same thing 2 years down the line? It's a bit of a gamble, no? To find a formula that sort of works now, and you don't know if it's going to work in 2 years' time when it goes on air,
John,
when it launches.
go to your question about audience taste. I'm not sure that. I mean, first of all, we're talking just about drama, and so we're competing with a lot of other shows. I think the audience are also a lot more sophisticated, like in terms of storytelling.
Do you think, Xavier, that was
The drama
that
audience, I'm
The
talking.
audience has become more sophisticated, or people discovered that the audiences are pretty sophisticated?
Good question. But no, I think because the really good showrunners are always pushing the envelope on their story, and so I think we can always, we never should underestimate the audience. They really want to hear new stories. I mean, the thing that I find interesting, and it's really also for broadcasters to I hear when we meet all the commissioners at the moment, there's a lot of head scratching in trying to engage with the 18 to 35 audience, which is obviously much more dispersed in there, between obviously all the social networking and reality shows and Love Island of this world, which are obviously competing for our eyeballs, and so obviously that's the audience of the future, and that's really, I think, a segment of the audience that we really need to engage with.
Yeah.
Them stories that speaks to them.
Sorry.
Sorry, go on.
No. I was going to say that probably there was some years ago there was a clear line between free television and pay television and the kind of shows that were produced for both of them. It's true that right now that thin line is crossed, and because the audience is, as you said, more sophisticated, or they are ready, or they have an appetite to have more complex stories. No. Yep. It's true that in A3 Media, what we did is try to create a label that is A3 Media Series A3 Media, and as a brand of quality for the series that we created.
That was the kind of revolution which I think come with great HBO series, and later maybe some of the first Netflix. And I wonder if now people are looking more for feel good. For example, Xavier, you have a marvelous project called Castle of the Eagles, which I think, if you could describe it briefly, because it seems to be.
Well, that's not really going to engage with the 1835, though, because it's like The Great Escape in Italy. It's a true story. But yeah, I mean, it's all set in Tuscany, and it's a traditional, I think, fantastic sort of prime time older audience story. It has actually not that easy to put together because it's quite it's a story about a group of men and trying to escape. So it's really The Great Escape over 6 hours, written by an amazing writer called Jeff Pope. And we have a great cast, Jason Isaacs, and I'm having a really tough time, engaging with broadcasters on this show, which, on the other hand, I'm sure if it were made and shown on TV, would be a great success. So that's the barrier to entry, but that's fine.
There's another example of a good feeling show. Like tonight, we have the premiere of ¿A qué estás esperando? What are you waiting for? And it's an erotic, romantic comedy, very easy to watch, and it's been the most successful premiere in A3 Player this year. So you're all invited for the premiere tonight, 8 p.m.
Fantastic. And for example, JJ, you were mentioning your post on Fique, the crime drama.
30, yes, yeah.
I think that's also symptomatic of some ways in which crime is going, in that it's not just solving a case. There is normally a social background or a domestic background personal issues, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, it's inherent to the books of this series in which it's based. So the books take place in Bradford, and it is about a world in which a couple who are both ejected from their own communities, from their Southeast Asian communities. One is Hindu and has married a Muslim wife, and Muslim wife basically has been ejected from her family and community because she married with a Sikh investigator. So they are in a way on an island on their own, and kind of the complexity of the different communities in Bradford, both the Pakistani Muslim, the Sikh, and the Hindu communities who don't always see the light of day to each other. Let's put it that way. There is a lot of clashes, and it creates a very complex and dynamic environment in which this love story takes place. The love story is in a way a genre mix with what the crime story is. So I think going back to what you were saying, the complexity of audiences that they are now looking for, because they are, of course, always have been versed in being able to deal with complexities, but I think the audiences are becoming more and more intrigued by getting deeper into characters and more layers to characters they can unpeel and unpack. And there's an enjoyment in that. I think that, you know, in the craft of American writing, sometimes we can really look at Marvel at things like the Penguin, which to me, for example, on paper doesn't have any appeal. I don't think about the Penguin as something I'd really like to see. It reminds me of the Danny DeVito character from 1992. But then when you watch the show, it is unbelievably good. And it's really captured in the writing and the partnership between the two characters. I think, I'm not saying let's model our writing on American writing, but I think there's something to learn about the complexity of characters that we can capture also in Europe, and we are doing, that is going to bind audiences with us.
Yeah, I mean, for us, look, the series that has done extremely well for us, and as you were saying earlier, no, like at MIPCOM, is Night Sleeper, which launched on BBC One in September. It's been the biggest launch of the year for a drama on the BBC. I think now between first run on BBC One or rerun on BBC Two, iPlayer, etc., it's over 8 million viewers, which is fantastic. So we are extremely happy with it, and also we're happy to see it work, obviously on a public broadcaster like the BBC, but also on a commercial channel like TF1 in France, no, in their prime time, or in Stan in Australia, which is obviously pay TV. So it's just where you see, as you were saying earlier, no, that this thin red line that sort of divided what content can fit pay TV or free to air or commercial versus podcaster, no, is really divided now. So that's, you know, that's great to see, and I think in this case, you know, it's more like a limited series, fast-paced, sort of runaway train. So it's a concept that, you know, if you do it, execute it properly, I'd say it's difficult not to make it work. And I think in terms of genre, crime is still king. You know, I think it's still definitely, the genre is working well, either if it's IP-based, if it's based on a true crime. I mean, we have now announced the series Costiera, which is an Italian production for Amazon, and you know, we're incredibly happy with it. You know, it has.
I think Costiera, in many ways, ticks all the boxes. It's in English language. Well, it's better for you to describe because you
It's definitely English language in the sense that Jesse Williams, which obviously we all know from Grey's Anatomy, is the lead star, an ex-Marine who has roots in Italy, who decides to sort of move to Italy and starts working as, you know, sort of head of security of a luxury
it's
hotel
on a gorgeous part of the Italian coast.
Positano, yeah, beautiful.
And a luxury hotel there.
Exactly. And it's procedural with the case of the week, you know, that he'll have to sort helping some of these high-profile clients staying there. And then obviously there's an arch of the owner of the hotel, the daughter of the hotel's owner sort of vanishing, and him having to try to help him and find her, right? But I think it's you have a name that, you know, they put on the poster and everyone knows and recognizes him. You have the procedural element, you have the blue sky element. I mean, it's a very sort of escapism formula, let's say, no? I mean, who doesn't dream of going in a beautiful location on holidays?
But before that, of course, you've done Responder, which was immensely successful, but isn't quite so light, as it were. And would you be able to make that series, which is brilliantly acted, popular,
I
but
think
for the same money?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should be. If you bring someone like Martin Freeman on the table, I think you should be able to. It is true, however, that whilst Night Sleeper, no, it's a series that has distributed extremely well in an array of different media, and particularly on free-to-air. I think Responder is probably one where in markets, for instance, like Spain, or France or Italy, it probably is going to have a better home on the pay TV as well environment than on free-to-air, because it's more, it's a bit more complex, a bit more gritty, it's less escapism.
Yeah.
And I think in any case, it's all about bringing good talent on board, but also being able to attract executive producers and showrunners from different backgrounds. Like in Costera, we have Adam Bernstein, who did Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So I think it's great to be able to have these European productions where you can attract casts from all around the world to make things, in a way that can travel extremely well.
I think we've mentioned before the quality of relevance, and especially for younger audiences, I think they are very much tuned into socially relevant or ecologically relevant, and I wonder if you would agree, Jose Antonio.
For the young audience, not only for the young audience, but for a diverse audience, it's true that there's an important target group that should be addressed. And then, for instance, we are not only producing for the main channel, for the free-to-air broadcaster, but also for Atresplayer, we are giving a loudspeaker to some invisible stories, like Night in Tefía, for instance, that was not very popular in Spain, but O Veneno, also for a diverse, the story of the biopic of a trans in Spain in the 80s. So that kind of stories, we think they also need to be listened, in the media world. And we are very proud for that part of production that we are doing in Atresplayer.
And do you see, this is a question for anybody, because we ought to start having questions from the audience, but do you see any, for example, evolution in terms of diversity, in terms of production, with regard to inclusivity, or what are the benefits of inclusivity?
Well,
for example, your crime series is obviously, I would expect, inclusive.
I think diversity and inclusion has come a long way. But I look at the panel here and I see more middle-aged.
Yeah,
people
more
sitting
middle-aged.
here, right? But let's put it this way: I think in terms of production, it's come far, but not far enough yet. Still, but I think the best thing is that it's proven now its commercial reasons to exist. Beyond any doubt that you need to have a diverse cast behind behind the camera and in front of the camera crew to essentially reflect what is our society, and it's the opportunities that have brought that with the whole movement towards that are continuing, and hopefully they will go much further. But it's shown, so much success and so much joy, for audiences. I think that's irreversible and great. I think the practical challenges sometimes that come with it and that we encountered as well is that sometimes film and TV are not for certain communities, for example in the UK, Southeast Asian communities are not pushing in general their children towards media as a career choice. So you have to then create that. For example, we built an academy for around Verdi to stream in people from Southeast Asian backgrounds and from working class communities to be able to be part of this, and they were all part of the crew. But hopefully, if we do get a second commission, then they can become more of the leading factor in the rest of the show. But you have to, in some cases, create it if it doesn't exist, which is absolutely fine, and that needs to happen. But it's still a long way to go.
Right, thank you very, very much. We have about 5 minutes, I think. Are there any questions from the audience? I think there are. There's one. That was a quick hand raise.
I'm a producer. I come from Sweden, so Nordic countries, and I live in Spain. But I have a question about, because I'm feeling every time you talk to commissioners today, especially in the streaming world, there's no guts and glory. There's no guts and glory, because they're all algorithm driven, and you lack emotions, and you see that's the problem with content today, especially when I watch TV from all over the world. It's like, you see that it looks the same. It doesn't evoke emotions. And I think, formula for magic, it should be, emotional. You have to be attached to something that you believe in. And so my question is that, do you feel the same when you are out and about? You have a great show.
No, I don't know. I think if you say is true, how come Netflix made Baby Reindeer, which is a sort of really gutsy choice? I think if you have, if the companies have great execs, and a lot of them, most of them have, TV is so different from film. I come from film, and that's a whole different thing. But when I moved into TV, my friends who were already had a foot in both camps said, movies, it's all about what you want to make. You're going to make your movie. It's going to take 15 years sometimes, by hook or by crook, and you'll make the movie you want to make. And he said, TV, it's all about what the commissioners want to make. So you have to find that dialogue with the commissioner and find, they all have a mandate, and they're in between you and the audience, and you have to find what they're looking for and then give it to them and be true to what you want to make as well. But I'm not sure I entirely buy the whole Netflix algorithm thing, but maybe I'm a bit naive. But I think some of the shows that comes from, like Rivals in Disney Plus, I just can't see the algorithm saying, let's make that Jilly Cooper porny show, at Disney. But what do I know?
Would anybody else like to react to that?
I even say that probably some of the streamers are maybe taking more risks with some of the content, particularly maybe geared towards a younger audience, etc. You guys definitely with Address Player are doing things that you probably wouldn't necessarily do for them bigger channels. Sure. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that we're finding that definitely there's an appetite for more diverse content, and that some of that diverse content is working really well. So like Heartstopper in Netflix, for instance, which is already in its 3rd season, So no, I don't necessarily agree with that. I also think that because now all the streamers are also tapping into the ad-funded no subscriptions, that's probably where, as Jose was saying earlier, this red line that divided, which content was more for free-to-air, which content was more for SVOD, is now being really blurry. So.
Yeah. If we rely only on the algorithm, it's true that at the end we will have plain television, because all the shows will feel the same. Yep. No? So it's true that we need to include some more complex stories, and I completely agree that you need to get in touch with emotions of the audience. No, your iconic series is the one that you feel. You feel like you are one of the characters, no? And you empathize with them. No, that's what we are looking for right now. Much more than what is happening on television, on the screen, that probably the big productions in the US, they have big productions with a lot of action. But it's true that now in Europe and Spain, we have good stories that try to touch with emotions of the audience. And that's a key element right now for a successful series.
Which is the key, the rub?
To touch the emotions,
del Cordero. JJ, would you like to react to?
Well,
we have somebody who's scratching their head, or maybe that was a question. No, I think it was scratching their head. Anybody else with a question, or would you like to?
No, there's one thing that's been bugging me a little bit. Is this? And I don't know who coined the term first. Was glocal, and I don't know actually what it means. It seems to me it's gibberish. Because it's sort of like you make local for local, but it then becomes global, but it's not meant for global, but still, you know, the point is, let's steer everyone towards making something local. But really what's happened is that the arena in terms of our world in Europe has really opened up. Our children, we ourselves are traveling, we have friends everywhere, and our stories are more international than they could ever be. Yet, I guess the commissioning structures, as they exist, at least for the platforms and the streamers, are very much geared towards saying, you focus on your local stories from your territory. Don't be too ambitious. Don't make too international shows. Just focus on your local story, and if it works, then great. It will break out.
But do you get that sense in the United Kingdom where you have probably after United States the greatest talent pool of writers? You have local stars who are international stars, and the idea that the UK should be local is kind of, you're not so local. You haven't been for years.
No, but I mean, the UK definitely is very local in the way it's production based. If you do go to streamers with a UK or with a show that's in English, but it's not set in the UK, they will say, well, we don't really know what to do with this. It takes place in France or in Ukraine or whatever, it's English language. Go to our French team, and then it's passed around. You know, that's the trap you can fall in. So the question is a little bit, are we fixated too much on producing for local territories, even though there are real international big ambition stories? And is it not a move towards trying to say, we're trying to grab a part of the market really which is occupied by the public broadcasters, and we can do the international things from the US. So don't worry about that. That's covered. So this is it's a theory, but I'm wondering if others feel like that.
We have time for a 72-second question and answer. Or maybe we could just have the question if we...
Yes.
Anybody got a long question?
I have a quick question. I'm an actress, and I have like a question regarding the talents. You talked about that certain talents from the main cast, the people have to recognize them to attract the piece. But what about the other casts, like, you know, guest roles or other roles on the piece? Do you look for certain following that they have on social media? Do they have to be specific in certain ways? Maybe you can talk about that.
Can I answer?
Mr. Producer, no? This is a question for the
Okay,
producer.
producer.
No, I think if you have a show with a really strong IP, you don't necessarily need, you know, you can, I mean, it's always great to have great actors or recognizable actors, but if you, it's not necessarily obligatory to, you know, cast up, as you say. And then I think it's really nice to discover new faces in shows and bring new, you know, new actors and give opportunities to also, you know, I do know that certain companies are really interested in knowing what everyone following, you know, number of followers and all their social footprint is. But that's I wouldn't cast a show like this. We, you know, we try and find the right actors. I mean, in my show Nautilus, which was a huge cast, which we had to cast during COVID, so it was all on Zoom, which was kind of weird. But, and do cam reads on Zoom as well, which is also even weirder. And then we all turned up and discovered, you know, that hopefully everyone is the person that we thought they were. That was great. But we had so many. We had a kid who hadn't even finished, a young man who hadn't finished drama school. We had so I think there's definitely the door is open for all sorts of casting opportunities.
Yeah, for us, I mean, in essence, casts who are emerging essentially is absolutely key and key to the success of the show. The way that, I mean, let's put it this way, on the medical drama, we put together an ensemble of which you, with the commissioner, choose 2 or 3 recognizable, you know, faces that bring people much easier in. Then you've got that in a way covered. Then the rest of the cast is entirely up to what you make out of it. And at the moment, it's very much about fixing, you know, the right cast with the right roles. And emerging cast is absolutely one of the key components, because that's where we find the best and the most success and engagement with audiences literally going like, that actor I absolutely love. And I discovered they feel part of the discovery of finding that for the first time and engaging with an artist while they haven't done it before. So yes.
Right. Well, thank you very, very much. We don't have time for any more, but please, a round of applause for our great panelists.
Thank you very much.